Hey, hey. Hello,
Howdy,
everyone.
howdy.
Hi, Evelyn.
I miss Kim.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to What's Next for Appraisal. We are so glad you're here. I am Kim Angelone, Program Director of ACI, and I am joined by the ever so brilliant Evelyn Schulberger, who is the Product Manager for ACI Sky Workbench. And in just a few moments, we have some very special returning guests from our Innovation Council who will be joining us. We have Tim Roser and Pete Crum, and they are going to help us take a look at UAD 3.6 from the review and QC perspective. I am super excited for this session. This calls back to my roots. Evelyn, did you know that I was in QC before I came over here to product?
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember you mentioning that.
Probably like once or 1,000 times.
Maybe once or twice.
All right. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick reminder that mics and video are disabled, but please go ahead and use that Q&A box to submit questions at any time. We do have a team that is watching those questions. They'll give you some live answers, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for some live Q&A. And always, this session is being recorded and will be posted on our website, aciweb.com. Today is the final session of our 5-part workbench series, and we are closely we're closing with a topic that matters to every appraiser, which is revisions. This session is called Built for Real World Revisions, Strengthening Compliance and Accuracy. And that is probably like the hardest thing.
Real
World
revisions.
Real world revisions. Yes. Before we jump into that topic, though, I do want to give a quick update on Workbench. So, dun, 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 dun. ACI Sky Workbench is officially live in production for UAD 3.6. We are successfully passing files through UCDP. It is such a fantastic time to be just a part of this industry right now. And we want to thank our customers for feedback, suggestions, questions, and of course, the patience that you've shared with us along the way. We know it's been a bumpy road, and just Workbench is in its first iteration. We hear you loud and clear. We know that it's not perfect and that we are listening to you very closely. So our first priority was getting through GSE verification and meeting UAD 3.6 compliance requirements. That's first and foremost above everything else. And I think through this conversation that you'll hear today, you'll learn about why meeting those compliance requirements are so important. So from there, the focus is really on stabilizing the early production experience. So we are GSE verified. Reports are now UAD 3.6 compliant. So now our focus is on stabilizing the production environment, improving usability, and then introducing additional workflow enhancements and automation over time. So we appreciate your patience as we continue to build and improve the Workbench experience. We also want to remind our customers that Workbench is included with your current ACI subscription. So you have access as you begin preparing for and completing UAD 3.6 assignments. So with UAD 3.6, appraisers are working in a new report structure with more data, more conditional logic, and different expectations around completeness and consistency. And if you have been in there creating reports, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a very different ballgame from what we are used to. So today we're going to be talking about what that means from a review and QC perspective. The goal is to drive down those back-end revisions and make sure that our appraisers are prepared. So Tim and Pete will help us look at what AMCs and lenders are asking for, different revision themes that appraisers should be watching, and what appraisers can do before delivery to avoid that back and forth that none of us enjoy. So we will also show you how Workbench supports the process through the Compliance API and QC checks. So it's going to be a two for this time around. And that's going to help appraisers catch those issues earlier and move toward delivery with more confidence. So Tim, Pete, are you ready to join us? Let me bring you over, guys. Hey!
Yay!
Hey, there we are. Let's talk QC.
Happy Thursday.
Thank you for joining us, guys. I am super excited to QC talk. It's like my
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us back.
absolutely. You guys are back by popular demand. Every time we have you on the show, we get so many comments from appraisers that are just
Yep.
like, we love them. I mean, I don't really know if they said that they love you guys, but the feeling is there. We definitely we get
It's
the
good to
message.
feel the love.
Right. I've
All
been
right.
having people log in and watch it just so they can leave comments about me like, oh, more Tim and Pete and Marcus.
That's really nice of you to give Marcus a shout out, even though he
Yes.
wasn't really invited to the
Yeah.
session.
Good
Poor
old
Marcus.
Marcus.
Yeah. All right. So here's what I'm thinking, guys. We have some questions that we both have, we've received from appraisers and then also just some common themes that we're seeing. So I just want to post some questions out to you guys. Give us your feedback, your thoughts, your experience. Feel free to chime in at any time. And Evelyn, same for you. If there's something that you want to add into the conversation, more than welcome to do so. But I do want to keep this very conversational.
Yeah,
We ready?
absolutely.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's start with what AMCs and lenders are asking. And so as appraisers begin working with UAD 3.6, what are AMCs and lenders paying closest attention to?
So the biggest thing on the lender side of things is a continuous workflow. Obviously, 3.6 is new to everyone involved, and lenders are being very cautious. They're sort of dipping their toes in the water with 3.6. They don't want to cause any unnecessary borrowers delay or hold up the loan process at all. So they're kind of handpicking and choosing. I wouldn't say easy, but very homogenous properties, loans that are going to go, where the purchase price has been vetted. I wouldn't say the easy ones, but they're definitely picking and choosing files that will easily clear the system.
Yeah.
Another thing. Yeah,
Go ahead, Tim.
No, go for it.
I would just add also that some of the things that they're looking for is partnership in these beginning stages of the transition to the new report types, and when they're ordering, whether it be through an appraisal management company or directly from an appraiser, they're certainly going to want that appraiser to be honest about their acumen with UAD 3.6 and making sure so that they can make sure that their borrower has as seamless of an experience as possible. So if you're really not familiar, it might you might want to not take on that very first one that comes your way and do your client a favor by educating yourself and making sure that you can provide them with the best possible service on the next one that they might order from you.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Another thing that's been coming up is compliance. The tools are still being refined, on the Fannie Mae and on all the software providers' ends. So the big thing is that the report goes through all of the delivery portals without errors. All the compliance errors is blank and has to be filled out areas. Those are built in right now. So as long as it flows from the appraiser to, say, the AMC, and then from the AMC to the lender, from the lender into the Fannie Mae portal, that's huge. And that's great from a workflow point of view. It keeps everything moving. But because of the lack of full compliance checks, it's the responsibility is going to be more on the appraiser at first to ensure consistent reporting throughout their new report. The logic isn't there, but the big, hard stops that would keep it from delivery are all built in. So that's a big part of what they're looking at right now.
Do you think that they are for the questions that they're coming back on for clarification? Is it any one category? Is it like missing data, consistency, documentation, report structure, something like that?
A lot of the big hard stop items that we have been seeing are to add or remove sections. For example, in the grid, there's a line for construction method for the comps and property rights appraised for the comps. And those lines aren't, or when we got the report, weren't automatically built into this appraiser's software provider's, default report pack. So there were lines that had to be added so it would pass, a compliance review. And, a lot of add remove type things. You have to add in the AMC name. If there's a co-borrower, you have to add in a separate line for the co-borrower. There's a couple things that, were clicked but should be removed. So it's a lot of add remove things. If you click on something, say area volume of the outbuilding, it's going to populate that in the report, and the appraiser doesn't know how to fill it out. So they'll leave it as, one, but it actually shouldn't be filled out at all. So the big takeaway we learned is if it doesn't apply and it's not required, don't fill it out. Don't click in it. Don't put one. Don't do NA. Just leave it blank, because it can cause problems later on in delivery when a certain section, when it is populated, has to be filled out.
We see that too.
We have been seeing that. We're seeing a lot of specifically around like property restrictions, easements, encroachments, that those sections, the drop downs for them, what they're reporting on, they don't see something that applies because it's none. And the selection is other. And then what's entered into the other description is none. And then how it impacts is none. And so there's been a lot of troubleshooting through, you don't have to fill that out. That one you can't, there's nothing to report on if it is none. Delete that, leave it blank, because you're telling the conditionality you've got other stuff to report on that's fully missing, and you're going to get flagged in Compliance API. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah, with that dynamic form, it's the butterfly effect. You click on one box at the beginning of the report, and next thing you know, there's a whole new line in your grid that might not apply just because you accidentally clicked a box it didn't need to be. So yeah, a lot of little ticky tacky things like that.
One thing I would add is that you'll fill out the appraiser will fill out certain fields in the report, such as having a pool, and then in the sales comparison analysis, they might get a non-compliance issue for adding the in-ground pool in the wrong portion of the sales comparison analysis. This is outlined in a document that was produced by Fannie Mae, Lessons Learned. It needs to go under a property amenity rather than under some other area of the sales comparison approach. So getting familiar with where things go on the sales grid will help appraisers in the long run with consistency and putting out a report that's going to pass all the sniff tests.
All the sniff tests.
That's one they're still developing at Fannie Mae. It's the sniff test.
Yes. Don't give them ideas, Tim. Don't give them ideas. We're still trying to get caught up with UAD 3.6 here. All right. So I guess a question, and this is really just, and I know it might be a little bit early, but I'm really just curious. Are you seeing more revisions with UAD 3.6 compared to 2.6? And are the questions are they different?
Yes and no. It's kind of a mixed bag. We're seeing a lot of the same type of revisions that we see in 2.6. Photos, missing rooms on the sketch, adjustments in the wrong direction, consistency between checkboxes and comments. We're seeing those in both 2.6 and 3.6. But there are some that are cropping up that are unique to 3.6. New sections. There's a lot of new sections in the new report, and it's just a matter of reading everything and selecting the correct responses. So an example, in the property access section, we're talking about how do you get to the house, public street. But if you're not sure, there's a whole drop down with other ones, and it could be pedestrian only, could be alley. So making sure you're just reading each option and understanding what they are. Site influence, is it on-site versus off-site? When you do your sketch, you have to put in your dimensions, where you got them. So is it assessor record? Is it physical measurement? So it's not so much errors, it's just not understanding what the question is looking for and making sure you select the right answer.
It's a learning curve still for everybody to understand. Yeah.
Right. And like we talked about, some blanks where it's not a required field, but it was partially filled out. Inconsistencies. So right now, with most of the major software providers, the sketch program doesn't necessarily carry everything over. So when you draw a 2-level house on your sketch and you go into your improvement section and you're making level 1 and level 2 in separate sections, making sure the level you sketched as level 1, you're reporting as level 1 in the improvement section in level 2. We've seen that, sort of flip-flopped where the GLA from 1 is shown as 2, just in different sections, little inconsistencies like that. And little typos. So with UAD, it'll make sure, like, say, the bathroom count line, you can't type in, ABC, it has to be numerical, but there isn't a logical check yet where if you enter 20 half baths, let's say, there's nothing that's going to flag that, because technically 20 is an acceptable answer for that field. But if you have 20 baths, it's not going to question that logic. So that's what we were talking about. The portal isn't as robust as prior iterations yet. The logic is being built, but it's more about building the basics, the building blocks. Is this blank? Is this filled out? So adjustment type errors, typos like 20 half baths might not get caught by the automation right now. It works, but it's not smart yet, is kind of how it works.
So that's a lot of, like you said earlier, ticky-tack things, right? There's a lot of little things to try to remember and make sure that you're checking. So if you were giving advice to appraisers, what should they understand about this early adjustment period? At like at a higher level, is there anything that they should really understand about what's different with UAD 3.6 versus 2.6 that might help them with the ticky-tack things?
Well,
the biggest, sorry, go ahead, Pete.
Well, I would say, I think a lot of appraisers are going to be slowed down when they do this, but slowing down when you're not understanding what is the correct response is a good way to go. There's a lot of reference material out there. They can go right to the ACI website and find reference material. There is Appendix F1, the URAR reference guide. They can take a look at that. They really should be. I would encourage all appraisers to be practicing this now and not start cold on an actual live order and then say to themselves, now is the time I'm going to get familiar with Workbench and filling out the form or filling out the report. I would certainly encourage them to take the time now so that they can be efficient when they're filling out their actual first report. But there's a lot of resources out there, and just kind of, thinking about the responses that they're typing into the report is going to go a long way, and not trying to move through things too quickly and not trying to assume that they know necessarily what the answer particularly means. If there's a little bit of uncertainty, take a look. The other thing that I would encourage appraisers to not do is not try to stick a square peg in a round hole and just use the other fields all throughout the report and try to bypass or trick the system. They designed the report with enumerations and enumerators, and they really have standardized definitions, and look towards those things to make sure that you are abiding by the way that the thing was designed. Trying to bypass the system is going to result in non-compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to tack on to your point, Pete, if you're looking at sections that don't make sense to you, what is the question? What is the correct response? You can certainly reference Appendix F from Fannie Mae of their 3.6 guidance. I look at that all the time. If you have the patience to, search this keyword, it'll tell you exactly when it should be filled out and, how it should be filled out. But a lot of the appraisers that we've worked with on 3.6 files work very closely with their software providers. Right now, since it's the beginning for everyone, software providers are more than willing to help out appraisers that are working on live 3.6 orders to help them through it, because that's another plus for them. That's a win in their column if they're helping an appraiser submit a 3.6 file to Fannie Mae. So right now, software providers are more than willing to help out solve any problems.
Thanks, guys. All right, so let's take this up a higher level. What are the top 3 revision themes that appraisers should watch out for right now?
So right now, I would say, as it applies to 3.6, it applies to, 2.6, our current version, biggest things, adjustments, making sure they're in the right direction. A lot of lenders are looking at adjustments that aren't being made. Why are there no site adjustments? Why aren't there, concession adjustments? But, also for when you make quality and condition adjustments, those are the two most subjective adjustments you can make in the grid. So anytime you're making those, the lenders expect to see, some comments on. So adjustments, the biggest thing, hands down, that lenders come back for. After that, repairs are cost to cure, how to handle them, whether to have them in the grid, whether the report should be as is or subject to, make sure you reference the letter of engagement for those type of things. And Evelyn, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but photos are a huge issue.
Oh
Not
no.
That was so dramatic.
Oh no,
Right?
we haven't talked about it so many
No,
times.
it hasn't been brought up enough, I don't think, because we're still seeing it. A lot of things
Okay.
we see with subject photos are missing rooms, the labels being incorrect, missing required photos, outbuildings, garages. Keep in mind, right now, all the 3.6 files you're going to be doing are most likely going to be Fannie Mae. So you have to adhere to all the photo requirements in the selling guide. Well, all the appraisal requirements in the selling guide, but photos too. So, bedrooms, bathrooms, everything has to be in there. And when you're looking at the engagement letter, make sure you look to see whether they have any special instructions about the need to blur personal photos inside the subject property. Yeah. So subject photos, matching the room count, sketch matching the room count. Those are some of the biggest things we're seeing right now, definitely the top 5. And that's going to carry over into 3.6 too, because this is sort of a universal thing. There are a lot of changes that are happening in the form, but they're really, these are still going to remain core issues for review teams.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And you mentioned the Appendix F. So I have a link for it. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for the audience so that they have access to that guide from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
all right.
It seems challenging. Like, you don't want to open it and read it. I tried it. You don't want to try it. But if you're stuck on a section and you know what that keyword is, just open Appendix F, search that keyword, and it'll bring you right to that section, usually, unless you use, something general like subject. Then there's going to be 1,000 results. But it's really handy if you can, search little keywords.
In addition to the reference guide, there's a couple of other things that appraisers should be aware of that exist. Where was it? I just had it here. It was, well, there's an FAQ that just came out. Basically UAD 3.6 lessons learned. There's another UAD 3.6 document that was published related to ANSI. And then there's another one related to, I believe it was photos. So those are 3 things that you might want to reference when you're filling out your first report, or potentially even before you fill out your first report when you're practicing to fill out a live order.
And also, if you're lazy like me and have an AI agent, right? Sort of, if you drop it into your AI agent and then ask, I'm filling out, a 3.6 form. What am I supposed to put in for this section? And you drop in it in, let's say ChatGPT or one of those platforms. Usually it'll kind of spit out a little answer if you give it the appendix.
That's
so
a really
you can
good
feed
call.
it and it will give you back an answer.
Yeah.
We have we put out a ChatGPT guide. It was an AI guide for appraisers. It's on our website. But that's exactly what that covers, is
Yes.
inputting that
Yep.
data and then asking ChatGPT to help you analyze that data. But the key there is to make sure that you tell your ChatGPT to only use the data that you're providing it. Otherwise, it'll hallucinate and start
Yeah.
to make stuff up just to make you happy. So, yeah, but that is an
Yeah, it'll
excellent
do
point, guys. All right. So, well, speaking of guides, let's go ahead and let's jump into Tim. You put together some really great materials for appraisers. So, I want to put that up on the screen here and give you an opportunity to just kind of talk through this. If there was a short pre-delivery checklist that you could give appraisers for UAD 3.6, what would be on it?
Yeah, and again, you know, a lot of these are also going to apply to 2.6 as well as 3.6. You can use them now and carry them into the future. It's just a quick list. You know, nothing really groundbreaking. Pretty simple stuff, but this is literally taken from a list of everything my team goes back for, as well as what my clients come back for. So the number one thing we're seeing could be all of this could be you know, covered in the engagement letter. So make sure when you start out your assignment, you know, you're done with everything. You know, you get your letter of engagement. Before you do the inspection, take a look at the letter of engagement just to make sure if there are any special things you're going to need to know about the inspection. You know, are there specialty photos? Do they need a second view? You know, do they need extra photos of this or that? You know, and when you're typing up the report, do they need their loan number in there? Do they require a site value? Do you have to put your license and E&O in there? So any lender specific thing, again, we talk about little ticky tacky things. This has nothing to do with which version of the form you're using. It's make sure you're giving the lender exactly what they're looking for.
Mhm.
That way, you know, you avoid that whole will it come back or not scenario. After that, the borrower name. And it seems like such a small thing, but whenever possible, copy and paste that borrower name so you don't put in typos. And also, if there's a co-borrower, make sure you're including the co-borrower. In 3.6 on the new form, you need to add a new row if there's a co-borrower. So it'll be, you know, Jim Baker on one line and Tammy Baker on another. You wouldn't put Jim and Tammy together on one because you have to identify whether it's a, you know, a business entity or a singular person. So if you get used to just copying the borrower name right from the letter of engagement, pasting it in, that way, if any typo exists, at least it matches the lender's file. But after that, similarly with the subject address, copy and paste it from the letter of engagement whenever possible. And if you come across a situation where your letter of engagement says, let's say Minneapolis, but you go to the inspection and it's physically in St. Paul, you put the correct address on there, but it doesn't match the lender's letter of engagement. So what a lot of lenders recommend is that you take a screenshot of public records showing where you got your data, you know, your data source, and adding that in as an image in the report. That way you have verification of your data source and, you know, less chance for the lender to come back on it. After that, you know, just look over the sketch before you send it, you know, verify that your sketch matches the room counts. All bedrooms and bathrooms are there and all the bathrooms are labeled as, you know, half or full. Make sure to, again, you're doing this for Fannie Mae, so include all the garages, interior and exterior, outbuildings, exterior and interior, porches, decks, patios, the whole works. Photos. Make sure your photo labels are accurate, and that's going to be a huge thing in 3.6 because there are going to be pre-populated photo labels. So if you're using a pre-populated photo label and then put your own on the bottom, say you're putting it on the pre-printed label says bath, but you're actually putting in a bedroom photo, that can cause a discrepancy in the label. You know, again, similar with the sketch, verify that the photos match the room count. Ensure, you know, include garages, outbuildings, basements. Again, Fannie Mae work going to require finished and unfinished areas of the basement. So make sure you got them all in the report and they're labeled right. Once you have your report all wrapped up and ready to go, you've generated your location map, you've generated an aerial map. Take a look at the aerial view just to see if there's something you missed. Is it on a busy road? Is it down the street from a commercial area? Is it on the same block as a school? So there's a lot of buses and a lot of traffic. Is it near railroad tracks or an airport? Something you might not have noticed at the inspection, but taking a look at it from an aerial view, maybe that could be an influence. Just sort of getting ahead of that and making sure, even if it doesn't have an impact on marketability, that it's addressed somewhere in the report. And so moving on to the grid. The grid is going to be the single biggest place where comments are still going to be necessary. There's a lot of sections of the report in 3.6 where everything is sort of baked in. Your responses in, your impact on marketability. Fewer comments are going to be necessary, except for in the sales comparison grid, because not a lot more has changed as far as communicating why you used these comps to the lender. So, obviously, number one, double check that all the adjustments are made in the correct direction. Right now, there are checks that will find that in your current version of your report. They're being built for 3.6, but they're not quite there yet. So just go over your adjustments, make sure they're in the right direction. And as far as comments, like this document says, make them count. You're going to need a lot fewer comments, a lot fewer disclosures. So you can kind of use this as an opportunity to clean up or, skinny down your comments rather than trying to jam in all your current canned or cloned comments into a report. Use this as a chance to only comment when it's necessary and make sure that your comments are specific to this subject, this valuation, and these comps. If a lender doesn't have to wade through 3 pages of addendum comments, they'll be much happier, and it's going to give them a clearer picture of what the subject is. So looking at the document, focus on why, not how much, rather than restating your adjustment amounts or search parameters. Explain why the comps were chosen and how they compared to the subject. So don't say their comps 1 and 2 are over a mile due to a lack of data. Say they're over a mile, but they're located in competing market areas. No location adjustment is necessary, because really that's what they're getting at when comps are either in a different city or over a mile or 5 miles or whatever your specific lender has for a requirement. Number 2, address locational differences, which is what we went over. If comps are in different towns or they're distant, comment on the market similarity between the comps, not necessarily why you had to go over a mile. When you're talking about adjustments made, don't just repeat the adjustment amounts. If you're saying bedrooms were adjusted at 5,000, they can see that in the grid. You wouldn't need to explain that again, but you want to explain the reasoning for the adjustments. Is based on paired sales analysis between comps 1 and 2. Something simple like that. Plus, when you repeat the amounts in your comments, you run the risk of saying I adjusted at 3,000 when in the grid you actually adjusted at 5,000. So if you don't have to say it again, don't say it again. Similarly, when we're talking about comments, comment on adjustments that aren't made for big ticket items. So, concessions, site size, view or location. If you're not making adjustments, don't just assume it's, self-evident why you didn't make adjustments. Usually if there's significant site differences, the lender will want to know why no adjustments made. Like we talked about, condition and quality adjustments. Don't just comment that I deemed a 3% adjustment for quality was warranted on comp 1. Instead, say what was observed. Comp 1 had recent remodeling in the kitchen, therefore it warranted a quality adjustment. That's what or condition adjustment. That's the type of explanation they're looking for, not just sort of regurgitating your adjustment amounts. When you're unable to bracket a major feature, site, GLA, bedroom, bathroom count, comment on that inability. Explain, your search parameters, and recognize that you weren't able to bracket it, and comment on whether that has any impact on marketability. And, like we talked about, avoid canned or cloned comments. Avoid your generic template comments if they don't apply to the subject. Again, there's no need to shoehorn them all in there. If you are commenting on each comp and why you think that is the most logical substitute for the subject, that's really all you need to do.
Thank you so much, Tim. I want to call out for a moment how valuable this feedback that you have provided, these tips and this advice is, because you work with all different lenders, right? So many different lenders, so many different requirements are coming across your plate. And I think as appraisers, they want to make sure they're checking everything and they're adding every comment they possibly can, because they want to make sure that they're meeting the requirements of that end customer, but you don't always know what that end customer is looking for. So you're just, here's everything I got. And what happens is there's a lot of time that is spent unnecessarily, and it almost becomes so much that the end customer or that lender, they're not reading through everything, and they're not interpreting what it is that the appraiser is trying to, that story that the appraiser is trying to tell. And I think with having a guide like this, from your perspective, this really helps to narrow down, like, these are the most important things to check before you send. So you don't have to send everything you got, but just focus on these, because this is specifically what's going to help to drive down those back-end revisions. So thank you.
And one thing that I just want to point out is that none of these revision type items are unique. None of them are new. They've persisted for years and years and years. And
Yes.
as appraisers, start to dive into the 3.6 world, this is a great opportunity for them to reinvent themselves and not make these repeat mistakes that have been going on for eons. If we can get away from these things and really stick to what the requirements of the form are, I think all of us as appraisers are going to have a much more seamless experience as we move into the future.
Right. That's exactly what will be great about 3.6 is a lot of the canned comments that people currently use, like you say, they're paragraphs long. And it's a matter of, well, when I was trained in, I got these from my supervisor. Like, these are what my supervisor used, so I always use them. And then when there's something unique to the subject, they tack it on, sort of in the middle of what they've been trained to believe needs to be in the report. Whereas the current or the new 3.6 has a lot of that baked into it. So it's going to be great to not have to put all that stuff in there.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent point. It does have everything now baked into the form, or report. We can't say form anymore.
Correct.
Baked into the report. But I think what at least we're seeing on the software side is that it makes it more complicated to complete. It's a harder report for appraisers to complete because there is so much information there. And Evelyn, I'd like to give you an opportunity here to kind of talk about some of the compliance checks that we have in Workbench, because I think that it's almost like a double-edged sword. It helps the appraiser to stay compliant. It makes sure that report that's generated is going to pass through all of the GSE checks, pass through UCDP, right? It's going to get to its end game. But it also creates some frustration for appraisers too, because they're constantly being stopped when they're trying to generate that report. So could you maybe talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in plain terms, it's more work on the front end, right? Instead of after the fact. And the way that we have structured Workbench, I use terms often: field level validation, our schema check, and our compliance check. Field level validation means you're going to know which fields are required based on how you're answering questions, right? That conditionality, it is all triggered from within the form. If you miss a field that is required, Workbench is telling you. It doesn't let you navigate beyond that required field. Now, if you, use a workaround and skip around something, and you somehow get to the end of your report and you are still missing required fields, then you fail our schema check, which doesn't allow you to even get to Compliance API. And then there's multiple steps, there's multiple layers here. And I know right now that's frustrating for users, again, because it's more work on the front end and you're still learning how to fill in this report type, what's required within this report type, what are these new data points, what do they even mean, and why is this necessary? Totally get that. But for us, the goal was less revisions, right? So the first checkpoint, field level validations. The second checkpoint, schema validation. The final is running a check against Compliance API. Now we also have a stop gate here. If you have fatals when you run a check against Compliance API, you will not be able to generate an XML. We don't even give you the option. It's completely blocked because you have to have all of those passing, all of those items are required to be in the report before you can deliver that. You'll get stopped at the portal anyway. You'll get stopped with your client, whomever it is that you're delivering to. You're going to get stopped regardless. So we wanted to do that on our side. We're integrated with both of the GSEs, both compliance APIs. Should one go down, we've got the other. They are, said to be identical, so we're good on that front. But on our side, we're really trying to make sure on the front end your report is solid before you even get to deliver. So by the time you've generated an XML with us, if new items come up, that's going to be what I would call more ticky-tacky, like client specific. They wanted this particular item reported here or there, not necessarily a GSE requirement.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Of course.
And I know that we are super over time, but this is very, very fantastic conversation and some great information. We need to unfortunately wrap up here. But to your point, Evelyn, exactly, and it's like I mentioned earlier, our first focus out of the gate was compliance, but now we can start to move into phase 2, which is usability, and really helping the appraisers so that it's less thinking, right? And it's more focused on the analysis of the appraisal report and the value of that property and the additional analytics that appraisers need to start to collect and put together to come up with that final product, instead of the ticky-tacky, do I need to check this box or check this drop-down option? So, all right, let's wrap it up. You guys are fantastic. You guys are awesome. We always appreciate whenever you're able to join us. You bring such a unique perspective, I think, just based off of your experience as both appraisers and so you're working on both sides of the industry, from being on the streets and actually completing appraisal assignments to working directly with lenders and analyzing those compliance or those requests that are coming in from lenders every day and being the communicator to appraisers. So just appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you, Evelyn, for touching on Workbench briefly. But I do want to say that while this does wrap up our 5-part series of Workbench, we are not done yet. We get constant questions about Sketch and mobile. So come back again and join us on July 23rd. That's in 2 weeks, same time, same place. We're going to be joined by Kevin Chung, who is our product manager for our mobile applications. And Kevin is going to provide a live overview of Sketchpad. We know that you guys have been asking for this, so we're bringing it to you. He's also working on some training materials too that'll come up onto our website. But come here live in 2 weeks for a live demonstration of Sketchpad. And he's also going to give us a sneak peek of ACI's upcoming mobile application. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Pete, Tim, Evelyn, for your wonderful QC insights. And we hope the rest of you enjoy your week.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.